Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining NCBA and the American Red Cross as we host a webinar on preparing for wildfires, hurricanes, and their prolonged risks. Our presenter, Marco Johnson, with the American Red Cross, National Capital and Greater Chesapeake Region, is back with us today. Marco has served with the American Red Cross for over 10 years as a lead for the Reunification Safe and Well program, a demonstrator for the hands-only CPR, and a trainer in assisted living and long-term care facilities. Also in his responsibilities, he supports the disaster services technology, the community preparedness education, the Be Red Cross Ready activities, and the Pillowcase Project. Marco, welcome. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Oh, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming to learn about how to be prepared, how to be safe, and how to take care of yourself and plan for emergencies and plan also for disasters and big things that could happen. And thank you for thinking about what you may need to prepare and learning about it. And that once you learn how to take care of yourself, you can then help us take care of others around you. So today I'm very encouraged that the things we're stepping through will help us be alert and informed before, during, and after these kind of events and these weathers, and that we could watch about these hazards. The Red Cross. Now here's a good web page to remember, redcross.org, and that can take you to a lot of sites when you need help and learning about the Red Cross. But guess what? Life-saving skills. That's what you're hearing today. You're learning about life-saving skills. And there's the blood program that the Red Cross helps save lives. We serve military families and provide international aid. You can hear about earthquakes around the world and tsunamis and all kind of things. The International Red Cross is there. And planning for and delivering disaster relief and recovery. And guess what? We've learned about recovery services that when there's prolonged events and like everything is really, you don't have a home, the whole village is burned, right? So thinking about wildfires today, guess what? We'll take it around here in the East Coast and in Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland, Virginia. Here's a sample of, oh my goodness, look at, they have, when the Weather Service issues these kinds of warnings and alerts, you want to pay attention and see, oh, that's right around where I live. And what about heat? You say, oh, it's a nice warm summer day. But look at, this was extended over 99, 100, and hot for more than 3 days. That was a week. And we had some warm weather for 2 weeks. And there was a lot of potential. And way down over in, let's see, I think it was down along Shenandoah, when it all dried out. So this summer, when we're having this kind of weather that just dries things out and people don't water it or it doesn't get enough rain, we actually start to have the wildfires naturally out in the parks or the valleys or the things. So notice where you are, pay attention, learn what it means when they say maximum heat. So wildfires can happen pretty much if there's a lot of different kinds of things that can happen wherever you live. So if you learn about it and say, oh, that's pretty hot today, but I didn't realize that I can go into the air conditioning, but all the grass is dry, all the trees and shrubs are dry. and they could be some accidents there. So this is what we're showing you today about the wildfires and what can happen and what you can do to prepare. This is real. Here's a link for you, wildfire safety checklist. And I think we'll put that in the chat for you so you could access that. It's an excellent list. It's a nice 2-pager that I have, and I think that let's put that for your tools in your toolbox, that checklist. So this is real. This is real. This is a case study we're having today. This is a little different kind of presentation because we're doing real things that just came in. We're in the middle of this. 750 Red Cross volunteers had at one time gone to out there into Hawaii, into the wildfires, Lahaina, all right? And just trying to there's water, you have to bring in water, you have to bring in everything. There's nothing, it's devastated, right? Then what's this on the right side? There's donations coming in from everywhere. But then guess what? You have to sort it, you have to organize it. You know, is it new? Is it old? Can you use it? All these people have come together. It's a real case study, and many volunteer organizations have been there. And some small 1-person, 2-person volunteer centers that were already there, and they pulled together and told people, well, we know what's happening because we live here. So it's a very important thing. Here's another website. This link, these are 2 separate links, but they go to the same place. But I put them in there for you. All right, what I wanted you to look at is, let's look over here. Whoops. When you go to this website, this thing in the middle, go to that website and go down the page of the story, and you can move this bar. If you look on the left side, you've got September 15, 2022. Don't get mixed up. It's not this September, it's last year. And if you look over here, it's all green. All these houses are up and all these cars are there, and there's trees and the village. Everything is there. You go on that website, you can slide this all the way over and you'll see how the whole part of Lahaina, Maui was all green. Then if you take this and slide it to the left, you'll see, oh my goodness, it's all burnt out. Hey people, this is real. This is Wildfire 2023. You're not getting some old briefing. This is new. This is the real thing. Okay? Then what happened? That's the same village I just showed you. That's the whole Lahaina. That's the place. That's kind of blurred from, I guess, the helicopter. But that whole village going all the way back, right? Going all the way back to the hills. Look how dry that is. That's all burnt out. The high winds and everything just burned and burned and burned and burned. Hey, people, this is real. This has really happened. The people that were the early responders, we send out people at Red Cross with the partners from FEMA and the local government. And guess what? We're looking here and we're seeing, oh boy, the disaster assessment people have to say, is it safe? Can anybody go in there to help? And where's all the people? There was missing people, hundreds of them, right? And what? I think the numbers around 115 people died. And they don't know, I think there's quite a few missing, not quite 100 yet. So they're trying to figure out who's missing, who's alive, where are they, what can be done. So this is real. This is real. So what do we do? How can we do these real things? Let's look, and this is a real exercise. If you have a smartphone, if you know someone who does, pay attention here, we'll learn how to work with these applications. So in your smartphone app, this is a tool, right? What we're doing now today is bringing you into anybody who has a smartphone, take some time now and tell me if you already have the Red Cross emergency app on your phone. So in the chat, put in there, yes, yes, have emergency app. This is the Red Cross emergency app. So take a second now, look through your smartphone, or take some notes now as we go through this for somebody else if you need to tell somebody else. All right. So this is instant access to the customizable weather alerts, right? And the safety tips, and prepares information for different emergencies. This is all free and easy to use app. So very important now that we look in here and download this app for this session today. You can always remove the apps later, but right now we want to get ready for this wildfire emergencies that are all across the country and setting records. Okay, so let's get that app going and say, yes, I have. If you don't have it, then take notes. All right, if you don't have it and you're allowed during this session, the most important thing you can do to save your life and those around you is to download the app during this session. All right, you can still catch up. So that's the assignment. Download this emergency app tool. Good. All right, so when you do get it down, then say, yes, I do. If you don't, take some notes now, and we'll go through this. The big change and a lot of work this whole past year on working through these tools and this emergency app to help save lives is working and thinking about how we're working on these apps, right? So 40 alerts now. We used to have 35. We've got more. We work with the weather people and the FEMA, and all these things are coming together. All the partners telling us about the wildfires, the storms, the floods, and we can customize it for each person. Very important. All right, everybody's just downloading the app. Good. I'm so glad to see that in the chat. The biggest thing that we've done when we go into a lot of communities, like I was down there in June to Florida when the hurricanes came through and the floods, and there's a lot of communities that speak more Spanish than they do English. And so we have quickly now, these alerts can be flipped and toggled between English and Spanish. So let's think in terms of, oh, I know someone who mostly speaks Spanish, then you can tell them about this app. So learn about this app for yourself, but learn about this app so you can tell others. Okay. The radar maps are already in there and are live working with the national weather stations. As we go through these, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. This is very important, what we've done with this. We've been able to work with all the guidelines and the accessibility for how to use the app, how to make it simpler. Sometimes my left hand cramps up and so forth. Now the whole thing is we can turn the phone, the handheld device can be turned landscape. There are many apps that will not turn landscape for you. All right. And this way, when we're turning landscape, it's easier to hold in the hands. It's easier to attach on wheelchairs, and that has the screen reader, and it can talk to you. So guess what? All these things that we're talking about helping all the different kinds of capabilities, we have it now. And I know a lot of senior homes are starting to have this new app updated. If you had the old one, it's okay to go and update it and make sure you've got the one with the new accessible features. I know sometimes we think it happens someplace else. I know here in Washington, D.C., we think that things only happen in Baltimore. But guess what? They could happen anywhere. We know about the winds and the weather and the storms changing directions. So let's think about these apps, and we can go through these step by step, right? And we can see how it's building and how you can take actions. It's helping you make plans. It's helping you work on what do you need to survive and be safe for emergencies and big disasters, right? What I really liked about it, it tells me where all the Red Cross shelters are across the United States. And then you could find out if there's one near you. If you're all flooded out or burnt out from wildfires, you can then go to the nearest shelter. Okay? Think about this now. We're going through a little roadmap. What are the risks of wildfires? How to prepare for wildfires, right? And we're going to answer some questions. So here we go. This can be fun. This is a work session, a little laboratory for fun. Answer these questions. All right. Do the personal plan. I need you safe. Then, if you're safe, I get you safe, you can help others. All right. And then we're going to have these 4 goals. We're going to look at these goals and the checklist, and then we're going to have fun. So it's almost like, oh, this is a little game of how to be safe, right? How to be safe and plan ahead. So I picked in your app, you can go to in the location to add a location, and Paradise, California is where I went in 2018 as a Red Cross shelter supervisor and stayed there for tour duty. And let me tell you, that's where 243,000 acres were burned. And what was it, 6 months a year that they kept burning? And the people's houses were like the pictures I showed you. So from Hawaii and Maui all the way to all the California fires, those cars are getting fried and melted, and the gasoline explodes. People's homes are burnt out and melted. So you could look up, put in your location in the app now if you have it, if you did download it, and you can keep trying to download it, and or take some notes that there's 3 things that we can do. You put your location, right? Then you go ahead here and you see what the risk is from where you live, right? Just put the location up there, add the location, Paradise, California, and then we're going over here, and it's a high risk of being affected. It's been dry and that's where I live in Paradise, California, right? And then you can enlarge it and say, oh my goodness, it's all dry and it's a big high wildfire high risk level. That's what we're doing. We're learning about what to do and how to plan and what to think. There's one thing about planning. Oh, let me plan for all the disasters that could happen where I live. And you can also then learn more about the specific ones, like the wildfires. Here's another link. The Forest Service also helps in a risk map. And this is what the Red Cross works with. And we partner and look at theirs, Hawaii, and you could see where it's all red, showing that that's a high risk, right? So where do even in the East Coast, look at there's some fires in some high California, the West Coast, they all can be having fires down in West Texas, wildfires, right? And then there's Hawaii. All right. So this is why you're having a special interest in this app of the wildfire extensions and enhancements that have just been done. So we're creating the wildfire plan, right? And then how do we do it? And we're going to ask these questions. What kind of home do you live in? Do you have the following on your property? And do you have any following in the household? Children, disabilities, seniors, pets. And you can click what you have, right? Whoops. And then that's how we step all the way through to get our wildfire plan created. The 4 goals, the evacuation plan. What's the biggest thing? I showed you those pictures. The whole village, the whole town was all fried and burned. I understand there's some homes in the side of the mountain, or for some reason, some homes did not burn, and some people actually got to hide in some buildings. But most of it looks like the whole village is burned up. So the biggest surprise that they had, and what we're hearing in the early news accounts from the people getting in, and they were not allowed to, some people were only allowed to go to the edge of the disaster because the local officials, along with the Red Cross disaster assessment, they would say, well, this is not safe for anybody else to go in there. And the first responders and the fire and rescue, they have to also be safe. So what we're looking at is an evacuation plan, and a lot of people said they didn't know what to do. So do this on your own research. You can find out, go and do all the different accounts, and you'll find out right in the first day and second day, the feedback was nobody knew what to do and there was no help. So check that out, validate what I've said. And but right now we're saying, hey, it's important to have a plan if you go or if you stay, right? But how do I create what we're calling defense against that wildfire, defensible space? So there's something called immediate, and another zone is intermediate and extended. So these things you can do right now. Maybe you've got, if it's dry, maybe you've got too many things close to your house, right? And then you can move things away and plant them further from the house. If you have plantings by the house, you'd have to make sure that they're watered and healthy, right? There's an intermediate zone, and you could keep your grass trim and keep it watered, right? And have space around the plantings. So if there is a fire, it can't jump from one plant to the other or one tree to the next. So uninterrupted space, so the wildfire can't move to your home. You'll see that in some weather and news reports, how they do that, putting together, there's your to-do list, and how we're protecting ourselves, how we're dealing with air quality. Remember, within 3 days of, well, almost within the same day, but the next day, when I went to California wildfires in 2018, I started choking. And then I coughed for the whole 2 weeks that I was there, and for a week since I got back to DC. So the air quality, when even if the fire and smoke is in Canada, California, far away. So imagine in Hawaii and Maui when they're living right there. So if the fire didn't get you, the smoke might. So pay attention and be prepared for personal protection equipment and how to avoid these things. The biggest thing we're interested in too, then, once you take care of yourself and learn about yourself, get involved with what the community is doing, right? And then we've completed our goal of how we worked with each thing. Now in the chat, tell me, as you go through goals and as you think about these plans, and think about where do you live and how do you live there? Are you in up 10 stories or are you in a little house? Tell me in the chat, are you a newbie? Are you an explorer? Are you proficient? Are you a master? Or are you a legend in your own time that you completed and shared with others? So do you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that this is our goal, that we really want to work through and see what you put in the chat. Also then, if you're thinking about some questions about your home and you want to be able to, oh, there's a newbie. All right, put in the chat what level you think you are, that you're beginning your journey, you're starting to prepare, you've completed some key actions, completed all key actions, and shared with others. Those are the things we're looking for in the chat. So if we want to make the home safer, so that you can prevent fires, it's certain ways that you could, from what kind of a building you have, you can then also see about if there's a certain kind of window covers, right? You're making sure that the plants are not around there, nothing dry, and that the roof is in repair, and that you have plenty of water if you have to stay inside, right? So you're looking to say, oh, I live in this kind of house, or if I'm in an apartment or a condo, then what can we get the condo association to do? What communications would you have from that location? So it depends on looking at your house, right? Yes, and we are thinking in terms of those condos, and if you're rendering some garden type, like many of those in Maui, uh, of 1 or 2 or 3 levels above them in clusters, these homes and apartments, the landlord and many local governments require that when they permit for being a rental, that they need to um, have the evacuation plans, and that they need to know how to protect you in those homes, right? So this is a good thing to learn for yourself, where you are and what you're doing. And our thing is never stop preparing, review, and update as you go. So using the software in the application, right? So here now is what you did. The wildfire evacuation plan. You did one for yourself, you did one for the people where you are, with the landlord, with the group, with the community. But now we looked and we made the plan. That's what we talked about. The immediate zone, right? The defensible space. Look at, so in your app, in your phone, it will go and take you to these different, right? Here's the intermediate zone, and it'll take you up and down so you could look to see where you are and what you're doing. Immediate zone, clear of all the plants. They're all kind of dried, get them out of the way. Things that can burn, move the trees and shrubs, right? Look at, they're actually saying, hey, it's too close to the house. Old branches, clean out the dead leaves in the gutters, right? So this is what we're doing, extending the zones, working and pulling all this together, right? So some people then make sure that they have a way to get out. So number 3 goal about the smoke, personal protection equipment, right? Personal protection equipment. Monitor the air quality. Have a plan for it. if we're down here in Baltimore and Washington and across the United States and we can get smoke from California and we can get smoke from Canada, so it really helps you to learn about what you need, what kind to do with the windows, and how to protect yourself when you do go out. The face coverings, they're called N95. It's a safety grade, right, that we use. Good. The goal for getting involved with the community is that's why it's important. Take care of yourself, learn about that you need to download this app, and then also you can teach others and work with the community all around you. That was one of the best things that they had then in Maui. That it was just the community, the people that were there nearby who were the first to be able to help, right? But talking to the people, talking to the resources, working with the neighbors, and helping each other make it safer. All these new enhancements that were just done in the emergency app from the Red Cross is available in these states. And once again, we're showing you the fire hazards map. And so you could learn about where this is. Okay, so that's about thinking of where you are, learning how to be prepared, downloading the app, learning, using it as a game, as a tool, however you learn. This is what we're doing. So some of the things that we already talked about, I'm going to go through them so you have them high in your mind. You can take notes or put things in the chat. We're very encouraged that you're participating and learning about these things, right? So on the personal protection equipment, if you've ever seen this kind of fire, you'll see the fire rescue people. I think they have a hat that's fireproof, the mask that's fireproof, the gloves, the clothes, right, the boots, and that their breathing apparatus. Uh, they all have this, and I think it's over 100 pounds. I don't know if it's 200 pounds, but I know that when a fire and rescue people are dressed and they go in and fight these kind of flames, uh, with water, or many times you'll see them, they'll try to dig a big ditch so the fire doesn't jump it. All right. So that's what we're thinking about the wildfires and the personal protection equipment. Think about what a wildfire has. Talk to your fire department and see what you may need if you're prone that way. Okay. We already know that they can burn anywhere, and we already know that we've had some heat over the last couple of years. Places that didn't burn before starting to burn now, right? And there's long-term and economic impacts. We also know that, guess what? Who causes most of the fires? Who causes most of the wildfires? Anybody know? Anybody have an idea? 85% of the wildfires are caused by people. All right. That means there's things that we could learn about, right? And here's some of the points. When it's hot, you have to learn about if your car could spark something. We want to be careful about the gas grills, right? Use caution. Devastating. The whole village, the whole town can use everything you own may be melted in the heat. That's what's interesting about wildfires. You don't say, well, let me go back home and see what I got, like a flood, right? Understanding the risk, right? That's what the tool does. What I'm showing you now through all these different slides and information is already helped you through in the Red Cross Emergency app. But now you're getting to take notes if you haven't downloaded the app yet. But it's important to download the app and start to move along a newbie that you're preparing. And these are real pictures and real disasters. right? How is your health now? And I thought I was doing pretty good, but it was hot here. You saw my maps of the East Coast there. And for a couple days in a row, I said, boy, my head's or I do a little bit of yard work. And I felt the impact of that 99-degree heat. And they said the index was 106. All right. So exposure to the pollutants irritates the lung, causes inflammation. See what your health is and what can be doing. My eyes were irritated. Some people are telling me that the smoke from Canada didn't really get into their throat, but their eyes burned. So we're learning about this in the app. The app helps you step through this and what to do and build those safety defense areas, right? Here's what we're saying. Let's get some personal protection equipment together, the mask, the things, have a little go kit, right? Have your crank radio in there that has all the weather alerts and all the news. So with the emergency app and with your crank radio for local things that mostly you have to listen to the local authorities and the state before the Federal Emergency Management Agency kicks in. You may need to know how you build your kit and how to do things and how much water you'll need, right? So you can have it ready. Think about do you have enough medication? So right now, everybody should get ready if things happen. You should be able to survive for several days. All right, and important documents. Nowadays, we can put them on a DVD, on a disc, or you can put them on a thumb drive. You can upload them to somebody's server. So it's important to go ahead and scan. If you don't have a scanner, pay somebody to help scan in all your legal documents and digitize them and have them off-site someplace else, right? The people in Maui and Lahaina, that they had family on the other islands who had their thumb drives or their DVD disc with all their stuff in it. All they had to do is reprint it, right? And how are you going to go? Which way are you going to go? This is why it always helps to know your local fire and rescue, your office emergency management center. You might have to leave immediately and grab that bag with your water and your munchie bars, right? And your hygiene kits. Right? In the Red Cross app, you'll be able to track the changes, right? That you have access to the alert. So Red Cross Emergency app, more of you should be downloading that now. If your personal protection equipment is new and in good condition and not contaminated, you could use it for wildfires. If you have 10 or 20 that you bought in bulk and they're called N95, you could still use those for the wildfires. I met one guy and he had his same face covering through all of COVID. And I said, well, I think that's contaminated, right? Some of those face coverings need to be changed every day and sometimes twice a day. So let's look in the chat and tell me in the chat, what is a fire weather watch? What is a watch? And then tell me, what is a warning? Okay, in the chat, what is a wildfire watch? What is a wildfire warning? In the chat. All right. It's wildfire. Be ready to act. Be ready to act is a watch. All right. Take action. Wildfire. It's occurring or it's expected soon. It's around you. It hit somewhere. Be alert, and you've got to find out if you really have to stay or leave. Evacuate immediately if they tell us. Everybody should have their communication plan, what to do, and a contact card with you at all times, right? How to think about before you go and if you go, and what you need to do, what you need to pull together. All these things are very important, and they're helping you in that emergency application that you could step through and you work through your fire rescue checklist. So if you download, if you don't have the app, you can, but if you still have access to download the wildfire preparedness checklist. So between the wildfire preparedness checklist and the app, you'll be good at learning about evacuating and which way to go and how to go. Are they going to have buses to take you out, or which way can you go? Very critical is the prolonged risk. You look at a whole village, a whole town, a whole 243,000 acres in Northern California. Those that have prolonged risk, the grounds are contaminated. The health department will not let those people go back and look through anything that's left, right? So when in doubt, throw it out. That you really can't use much after wildfires, right? Inspecting your home, you can have the local officials will help you inspect your home and check for any prolonged effects and where you can go and what you can do, right? Now we're jumping into hurricanes. Thank you for surviving the wildfires. And just moving through, this is real. September 11th, right, 2023, Hurricane Lee. And this guy was coming through 120 miles per hour. I think that's what they got up to. It shows which way it's going. It looks like it's going up the East Coast towards Massachusetts and Maine and Canada. So the cone contains the probable path of the storm center, but does not show the size of the storm. All right. But the hazard conditions could still come outside of this path that they're showing us. This is real. This is the other day, right? What's today? This is the 13th of September, and this was the 11th. We got a storm brewing that, guess what? When it gets a name, pay attention. when hurricanes or when the weather gets to give it a name, then it means it's gone so many miles, right? And it's really can be damaging. It can come back to you. We have a hurricane here because hurricane is a word from the locals. It was two words like uh, hurricane or something from the Caribbeans. And so this is why we have it around America. In English, we call these cyclones hurricanes. Other parts they're called typhoons and different things like that, right? But because we're down here in the Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, it got its name from the local native languages. Pay attention to this here real quick. The greatest threat to life safety comes from the water in the form of storm surge and inland flooding, right? And it says, here's where cyclones are, here's where hurricanes are around the world, and over there in blue is a typhoon, right? Here they have the categories based on how the sustained wind speeds. And you may hear that. You hear these categories going high up, they know you're in trouble if you get to 3. Major hurricane, cyclone, typhoon. All right. When is the hurricane season? Put in the chat. Let's go. When is the hurricane season? June through November. Putting in the chat. And in the Pacific, mid-May through November. So we're in it. We're in the hurricane season, and we're already learning about the greatest threat is comes from the water in the form of storm surge and inland. Water goes where it usually doesn't go. That's not happy if that's where you live in your town, in the village, right? This is a real case from floods. Floods are just can rip the bridges apart, and a lot of deaths and injuries from that. We're already learning. Now is the time to prepare, right? Even for hurricanes, for wildfires, right? Which one can come, and then how we evacuate. About now we're in hurricanes, it's about water. Which way can I go? Am I allowed to stay? Is my house set up and designed that I could stay if the flood is just 2 streets away? It's happened. But authorities may advise to evacuate, so you have to go immediately with the go bag. and your hygiene kits and your water and your crank radios, right? And your backup batteries for your phone, right? The emergency app will help you monitor the weather, right? And the emergency app tells you what to do, how to be cleaning the gutters. So to make your home hard and stronger, here's things that we do for the hurricanes, the winds, the floods, right? What is a hurricane watch? What is a hurricane warning? You can put that in the chat, and the hurricane watch is ready to be act. It's possible. Take action. The hurricane is expected. And then we're going to do all these things in the app. It has the things about hurricane. So in the app, it has before, during, and after the hurricane, right? We're learning to pay attention with our local community and crank radio and keeping the backup chargers for your phone, right? You've got to do things before you shelter at home, and learning the app helps you step through that. Prolonged risk, turn around, don't drown, and the water gets contaminated. You got to keep the people out of walking in the water as less as possible with all the sewage. Right? And then we're learning what to happen if the local officials, disaster assessment personnel people say, all right, the first responders have gone through, it's safe for people to come back and clean up. And the health department says it's okay to go back to where you were, start cleaning up, right? The prolonged risk. You have to be safe and work with others and local officials on what to do. And if you find something, down power lines or gas leaks, you have to turn that in. And in the chat, any thoughts or ideas and questions? We're looking at the chat. We have the few minutes we allotted for questions. The crank radio. There's radios now that I'm trying to remember the man who patented the crank radio. He opened up the patent for free because he designed a radio to work. I think it was all through Africa or all through parts of the world where they didn't have electricity. If you crank this radio for a 1 minute, and then it can go for 25 minutes and give you the weather. And you hear that, you turn the dials or press the buttons, and it goes, and then it comes in and says, and the flood is coming up the Potomac. And it'll tell you, it'll be all the weather stations. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 regions across the United States. So we have the weather stations that come through almost like shortwave radio. Then there's AM, FM stations, right? And then there's other things that can be on that radio. On a crank radio, there's also a light. I like the ones that have the spotlight, but the second feature, or maybe even the more important feature, is the ones that blink. The ones that blink. So crank radios, and some of them have a solar panel that takes a little longer, right? With the batteries that are in flashlights and radios, and if you have batteries in almost anything anymore, you just keep checking them. I've had new batteries that I had to check, and they were a little bit corroded from not being used. Or if you go down to some of these big box stores, they've got hundreds and hundreds of packs of these. They're on sale now because September is National Preparedness Month. And if you go to your local little big box stores, you'll find a whole lot of things that have to do with preparedness. It's kind of a good time to get batteries, but batteries you keep checking. Monthly, every time I start to use one, I open it up and say, oh, is this one good? That's why I like a crank radio. And they have rechargeable radio batteries now that you just leave charged in on your workstation or by your bed. And when you need that flashlight or that radio, it's already charged up. Even though it has a crank to charge it without any electricity, it can be pre-charged with electricity before the event, before the emergency.
Marco, good afternoon. This is Angie. Thank you for such a thoughtful presentation. I want to jump in and ask a question or two, and also to invite our audience to continue to share their questions with us in the chat. We have about 7 minutes, so if we don't get to your question, Marco, I'd like to ask you if you would consider answering those questions and we get back to the person who asked the question, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Okay. So there's a question in the chat that is really interesting to me. It says, who should I put on my contact card if all of my family and friends live near me?
Well, for a start, that's great. That's nice, but you you start with what you have, and then sometimes there's groups that you can contact that help people in emergencies, and you may be able to have somebody. They always say have one or more persons locally, not just by your house, but maybe a little far away. But then somebody really outside the area, which you could tell when a whole like when Northern California is all burnt up. You need somebody really far away. So, but if you don't have that, it's something that you put down as to work on. I'll see if there's a group, if there's a nonprofit group that will accept those kind of things. So,
Okay.
because the person that you put on there, like when I'm in the East Coast and I send my thumb drive and everything to somebody in the West Coast, I tell them that people will be calling them because I gave your number out. Haha, they'll be texting you. So, but I had to work on that. You have to work on someone who said, okay, I'm going to hold your valuable private information on the thumb drive. And if people call me, are you okay? I'll do it. One neat thing about that, if looking in the lab, if you, when you ask that kind of question, if you download the app, there's in the emergency app, it's called Safe and Well. And you could put down and fill out that part in the app, and it will have phone numbers and things. And it's almost like on every phone, go there and put it in ICE in case of emergency. So along with the Red Cross emergency app, there's a capability in your phone before you get to download the app. And do that right now. Go in your contacts, look through your contacts, and find them if there's a little star by them that it says emergency. You need to at least, all those nice people you told me that were around you, okay, let's put them in. And if I'm on the kitchen floor, I'm out, my phone's by me, people can do 911 on my phone without having the password, and it will automatically give an alert to the people, a text that were in my ICE, with the little star emergency. So they're local ones, but if you're thinking about how do I get my information, do I scan it, and how do I digitize it? That is something really important to do now. You can tell by the people in California with all their stuff's burned up and melted, the people in Maui, in Lahaina, everything's burnt up and melted. It's happened all across the United States in different places. So think about that kind of thing and keep asking the questions. But it is a journey of preparedness. If you said you were a newbie today and you saw that chart, you have some goals to do. You've got to work your way up.
Well, I am a newbie, and so I thank you for encouraging me and others to download that Red Cross app, of which I've done, and I'm going to complete. I promised. Next question reads, what does a wildfire look like in an urban jungle where there are tons of brick buildings and not a lot of trees or vegetation?
Well, the fire is going to be it's Mother Nature. It's going to, if it's been hot and dry and how it started combustion, and there's all that science that's fun to study that. But it's preparing, and if it's not by your house, and if the homes are very sturdy and fireproof, then you just need to make sure you have your supplies, enough water. If it's so hot and a human can't stand out more than 5 or 10 minutes, and then they have to go back in the shade, and to have water. So it's learning about, that's good. That's a way to have it. But it's interesting on how these things will act on their own and have their own personality.
Thank you. And then in our last few minutes, I wanted to ask you if you can explain the Red Cross. If a natural disaster occurs, be it a wildfire or a hurricane or whatever the case may be, is it a guarantee that the Red Cross is coming? And is it a guarantee that you're going to stay with us throughout this disaster?
Yes, that is something that's been growing and growing more. Many times, the Red Cross's partnership with the United States government, like partnerships and written agreements with every state, and with many counties and local jurisdictions. There is the memorandum of understanding, and they say, Red Cross, come into our high school. It is now a shelter. All right. And so we're invited in. We already know what to do. And sometimes they have cots for us, and sometimes we have all the supplies. You may see a lot of Red Cross cars trucks being deployed, full of food and water and tents and blankets and things. So working with the local government and with other partners, nonprofits and corporations who say, hey, we want to put $1 million here. All right, we want to help you. Then the caseload, the Red Cross builds cases. The Red Cross has a case. Family Services of the local government has a case. Family Services of the state may have the case. The Veterans Administration may have the case on the same family unit. So sometimes we do them by families, trying to keep the families together. So we have this caseloads and these cases, and we're really looking now for, if the local government closes the shelter and says, okay, we're done with that. People are in hotels, they're with families, or we found long-term place, and the Red Cross still carries the case and work long after, many times nowadays. The disasters are lasting longer. So Red Cross opens cases, even if you're not in a Red Cross shelter or a local, like in Washington, D.C. When I work with Family Services in Washington, D.C., and those people know about shelters because they have the people that stay out on the street a lot and don't have a permanent residence. They have a whole lot of shelters all around Washington, D.C. for these people who choose to be, or the people that are out there. So we're looking to the Red Cross still helping, but remember, we have all these other partners, and the Red Cross knows how to send you to a partner or to the local government. And other people say, oh, well, we can do this much, but the Red Cross can do this for 3 days. Or the Red Cross can give a card for you to get food and new clothes. And there's so much on this, what do you call them? The cash cards things. So it's complicated because the Red Cross says it's not over. We still got your case.
Thank you, Marco. We are exactly at 2:01, and we want to respect everyone's time. Marco, thank you again, and as always, for bringing such a thoughtful presentation to us. We thank you for teaching us today and always how to be and stay Red Cross ready. We hope that you will join us at your convenience, and to our audience, thank you again for joining us this afternoon. If we didn't get to your question, we will share it with Marco, and he's agreed to answer it for you, and we will get the answer to you as soon as possible. Thank you again, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Be safe.
Be safe.